Hey, Mike, how's it going?
Great, Frank. Welcome back.
Welcome back. Yeah.
How we doing?
Doing really well.
Good. Welcome to Perspective Shift All. Thank you for tuning in to another week. We got a very special guest. Excited to kick things off. Who are we covering today, Frank?
We're covering Dr. Joe Dispenza.
I love it.
Yeah.
Back. This will be our second time covering Dr. Joe on this on Perspective Shift, and Dr. Joe is one of my favorites. He's somebody that I specifically like to start the year off with. So that's something Frank and I kind of wanted to, give you guys some good reminders and pointers as we head into 2024. We thought this would be a great guest to bring back on.
Yeah. All right.
So, Frank, where should we kind of kick things off?
Well, let's give a little back information if anyone hasn't heard any the last podcast we did.
Okay.
So Dr. Joe Dispenza had an experience when he was like 25 years old. I think he was in a triathlon and he was hit by a car or a truck actually, and so his body was pretty damaged. He needed a certain surgery where they put a rod from the base of his spine to the neck of his spine, and he decided at the last minute to not do that. And prior to that, he was studying
to forgo the surgery.
Yeah, to forgo the surgery, and which he himself is a doctor. He's a chiropractor at the time, and he. If one of his patients came to him with this symptom or this scenario, he would have had him do the surgery. But he himself decided not to do it.
Yep.
And so, but by that time, he was studying a little bit about mind-body connection and meditation, stuff like that. And according to his story, he tells that he laid on his stomach for about 6 weeks. And it took him 6 weeks to rebuild his spine mentally without any negative attribute or any negative influence coming in. So by the 6th week, he was able to go from, I guess he started from the bottom, the base vertebrae all the way to the neck, repairing it in his mind. And within like 2 more weeks after that, he was fine.
Isn't that a crazy story?
Yeah, and then even now he says he has very little pain in his spine. So then he went into studying neurology and the science behind this, and this is why I was speaking about Dr. Joe Dispenza today.
I love that. That's a great...
It's a brilliant story.
Great, start.
He's not just somebody who studied something and presenting it. He actually experienced it. And that's what what we're trying to do here in Perspective Shift is give you different modalities to experience, not just the intellectual jargon to think about. Because a lot of people get so in their head about this stuff. You must go and experience it in order to know what it is we're talking about. And Mike and I every day meditate and do different types of meditations and have these experiences. By no means do I consider myself a complete expert in it, because I can only be an expert in my experiences, not in anyone else's. But all the evidence out there says meditation to some form or another works. And Dr. Joe Dispenza has the actual science behind it. Yeah. He studies it. It's just not, hey, this is what happened when I did it. Yeah. So we'll get into that as the show goes on.
So Dr. Joe, for me, that he was pivotal in my journey, if you will, when it came to these types of concepts. And I remember watching his series, because if you guys haven't seen it, he has a great series called Rewired, and it's on Gaia. And that was one of the first series I started that I really jumped into and dove into when I started to learn about these different concepts of meditation, consciousness, just more out there than this physical body. And anybody who's getting into these concepts for the first time, Dr. Joe is one of my most highly recommended teachers, if you will. And the reason being is he has this great way of melding the analytical thinking mind, how we, understand things in this world. And he explains how you can go beyond that. And he uses science to help you kind of get that analytical thinking mind out of the way and allow yourself to dive deeper into your more whole being. And so Dr. Joe, for me, is somebody that I always recommend, and I could not speak highly or any more highly of. I also like the thing about Dr. Joe is the fact that he... So, like Frank was just talking about, we have this situation, right? And he thinks he's going to be paralyzed. Doctors tell him he won't be able to walk again if he forgoes this surgery. And he moves forward anyways. He has full faith, full trust, full knowing. And there's a lot of other stories out there similar to Dr. Joe's. And it's very funny how we don't highlight these. You would think if somebody is able to rebuild their spine, using their mental and meditation practice only, this would be like front page news. And Dr. Joe isn't the first one to do something like this. And so it's very, very interesting that we don't hear more about these types of things in this Western culture that we live in.
Yeah. So for listeners out there, like we're talking about this, what by doing meditation such as stuff that Dr. Joe does and other meditation forms, what has changed in your life dramatically? Like obviously you didn't have any spinal injury, but
probably so one thing that I can really mention is how I wake up and just stress in general. So I remember like 5-6 years ago, when I would wake up, I would kind of wake up in this panic type of feeling, like, oh, there's so much to do, I got to get stuff done.
Yeah.
Like almost like like you're jumping out of your body, like right race, when you wake up.
Like the race started 5 minutes ago,
and you're late.
Your shoes aren't even on yet.
Yeah. And I always had that feeling, like, oh my God. And using Dr. Joe's techniques, his meditations, his practice, and things like that. Now when I wake up, I mean, before I even open my eyes, I'm giving thanks for the day. I'm picturing the day as how I want to experience it. I realize that where my intention is, where my thoughts are, that is really what governs how my day is going to flow. And so now I get up so peacefully, and the mornings are for myself, and I set the stage for the day. I don't wake and get thrown out of my body and have to grab my phone and wonder if, I've got to be somewhere, if something needs to be done, or an email or a text message needs to be answered for work. And that is one thing that just poured out of me when you asked that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's cool because then if you're obviously in that state, everything seems to flow your way, or what we consider our way. It flows in a way that's more natural and less shocking.
How about you?
For me, like I've had injuries, they're gone.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like shoulder injury. Stuff
I remember
like
that shoulder injury. You haven't been talking about that.
Yeah, injuries will come up based on the activities I do. But what I notice is, so far I've never had to go into a doctor and get surgery, and I've been pretty physically active my whole life.
Remember how you were just telling me you went to the doctor the other day? And they were like blown away that you're not on any medications. Oh
yeah, I went to that was just for blood. To get tested. Yeah.
They're like, wait, what?
No medications. Yeah.
No medications.
Yeah. Well, it's. I always look at it as like a cult. Like if you're not in the church, you can't. They're not getting paid.
Yeah.
Again, I'm sure the person that asked me the question wasn't thinking in that form, but
no, totally.
I think it's funny.
But that's why I brought up, Dr. Joe, this paralyzed story, because there's a few other people out there that I can name just, off the cuff, who have had similar injuries or were told similar situations. Hey, you're going to be paralyzed. You won't have the ability to walk again, and they were able to heal themselves. Yeah, and you would think that'd be front page news.
Yeah, but it doesn't happen that often, I guess. So, like not into get the conspiracy theory because I believe that's a foolish place to go. Just focus on this. But like you said, there's more and more people out there like Dr. Joe that are actually expressing this type of material in the scientific world, which the world seems to be. It seems to be a little easier way to digest this information rather than just kind of like in the years ago, like within the field of like religion, where they told you about these miracles that would happen in the church. Well, it was very difficult to verify. Well, Dr. Joe will actually go in now in his. Like he'll throw a retreat, like a 7-day retreat, and he doesn't do it all of them, but some of them. He'll go in, he'll take the blood work, he'll take all these different samples from each individual prior, measure them prior, and then as the week goes on, he revisits the measurements in these people, everything from blood work to brain activity to everything. And there's a huge difference with everyone.
I love that.
There's different variances, obviously, but the people he measures, they all had a difference. None of them remain the same.
And that would be a positive difference, correct?
Absolutely, yes. It definitely is a positive difference. And because I remember when I went to his, retreat, and I was already meditating and stuff like that, but it definitely took me to another level. It was like going from the AAA up to the majors, if you will, in the meditation, because we were in there. It was 7 days. There was a lot of discussion. on the science and stuff like that. And, you know, it was all great stuff. But most of the day we were meditating. You know, I remember, I think I expressed
Hours.
this earlier. They were definitely, I don't think any meditation lasted less than an hour, if I recall. But one, we did this pineal gland meditation, and we started at like 4 a.m. because that's when your serotonin, your melatonin starts to convert to serotonin.
Oh yeah.
And that was 4.5 hours. Now I'll tell you, it felt like 2 hours or so. You know, I remember coming out, and the guy next to me who I made friends with, he's like, the first thing he went to was his watch. He goes, "You believe we were under for 4.5 hours?" And I just I started laughing. I'm like, no, it didn't feel that way, but thanks for letting me know.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, if you told me I was going to be under 4.5 hours prior to it, I might have been a little nervous going in.
Right?
I have to have a snack in between that. You know?
That's awesome.
But yeah, and by doing it and consistently doing it, it's a myriad of things in my life, like the things I used to worry about. Now I see the world as we're actually actors in a play, and I could not just express it intellectually, but I actually experience it. Where what's the character I want to play today?
Yep.
And then play it. There is no outside force, and I could see these things clearly, because once you get the heart coherence, and he's big into heart coherence, when the heart expands, the energy expands in the heart, it actually opens up a greater antenna for the pineal gland to actually receive information that's privy to your experience.
Yeah.
But most of the information we get on the news is that, for one, it's already passed, and it doesn't have anything to do with you.
Nope.
But we get caught up in it, and it actually shrinks our heart. So the frequency
stresses us out.
It stresses out because we're like locked in. We can't receive anything else, because when the electromagnetic field shrinks, you get an experience of stress.
Yeah.
It's a physical change in your body, and it hurts. It feels suffocating. Yeah. But when you expand the heart, all of a sudden, and all your energy centers are moving properly, you feel better. So the first and foremost, like Mike was saying, is like you get up and get all these energy centers working, and then let's see what your life is like.
Yep.
You know, make sure all the tires on the car have fully aired, the tank is full, and the engine's perfect. Then the journey begins.
Yeah.
You know, you got to take care of that first. So your energy center, your energy force is everything. Once you have that, and you know how to get to it, if you step out of it, you own this world.
Yeah.
You really do.
See, the best part about his stuff, and you touched on this, Frank, and you said he starts talking about the science of it. And in my opinion, the reason he starts talking with the science of this, you know, at his, you know, retreats or online, etc., is once you have buy-in, like as the subject, as the observer, that's when things really start to change. Because if you're sitting there in your head going, I don't know about this, you know, this doesn't feel right, I'm uncomfortable, you know, there has to be some bullshit about this, whatever. That is all analytical, all thinking mind, all excuses, all designed to keep you comfortable and to keep you exactly in the same spot. And with his, you know, the science work behind it, he explains that. And so as these feelings start to come up, you begin to let go of them, and you begin to say, oh, I know what this is. You know, this is a mental brain pattern. This is a neural pathway telling me, you know, I'm uncomfortable. I don't like this. I need to keep going. That's a sign for me to keep going. And once you work through that, you begin to develop new neural pathways, and the information begins to flow in a different way, and it gets easier and easier and stronger and stronger. And this is you coming into your true self.
Yeah. And there's always a sense of discomfort, but discomfort is actually knowing it's changing. It's kind of like the altitude change in something.
Yeah.
It lets you know. But now you actually become friends with discomfort rather than avoiding it. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, and so that's the challenge, and that's the beauty. Because even when you start to do these meditations, everything starts to go. But then, okay, your life is running really well, and this is happening. But then you want to go to the next level.
Yep.
Well, it's a higher mountain you have to climb, and the oxygen level is even lower for the mountain, so your system has to recalibrate. And during the recalibration period, there's discomfort. But now that you know what's happening, you actually honor and welcome the discomfort. Yep. It's actually a friend. So I have fun in discomfort every day.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, you start to see it for what it is. No longer is it painful. No longer is it something you're trying to avoid. You say, "Oh, I get what this is."
Yeah. Why would
you
I?
kind of sit with it and you accept it,
Yeah.
and then you move through it quicker.
Yeah.
Because all those feelings, guys, all that is a stuck type of energy. And so what do? We try to drink it away, eat it away, social media it away, whatever, rather than sitting with the feeling, accepting it, and allowing that energy to flow out.
Yeah.
And that's why we kind of get in these stuck points and pitfalls and all that, is we keep suppressing this energy, saying, I don't like this feeling. Well, you got to work through these feelings.
Yeah, and I don't want to equate pain or discomfort, I should say, with suffering. Mm-hmm. They can be, if you believe it that way, they can work with each other. Mm-hmm. But when I'm going through pain, I'm not suffering, because when I'm willingly put myself in discomfort, it actually always works in my favor every single time. And when discomfort comes because I'm not conscious of it, it may or may not work out. It doesn't always fail, even, but when if you don't have control over heading into discomfort, you fall, because you'll naturally fall into discomfort. You sit on the couch for too long, your legs are going to get sore naturally. Mm-hmm. So, but not understanding that, you're going to actually suffer from that, because suffering means you have no control of what's actually happening. Yeah. But when you understand what's happening, you no longer suffer. It's like, okay, this is what's happening. Mm-hmm. Keep going through it. But the purpose is not like to get through it. The purpose is the process in of itself. Because life is one big process with a multitude of mini processes throughout the day, throughout the the year, your decade, your lifetime. That's all life is, and the processes of themselves are the actual experience. Yeah. So, just like every movie has segments in the movie, but then there's an overhauling arch in the complete movie. And so when you start looking at life that way, you break it down into these little segments. The arch will actually continue, and it'll surprise you every time. That's where the synchronicity shows up in this beautiful work, because when you start doing this stuff, all of a sudden you start to see things happen. It's like, it's not just, and I don't want to say it's not just feeling good, because actually feeling good is the prime reason I do it. Yeah. But all of a sudden, because you feel good, it's amazing what shows up, who shows up, the timing with everything. That's the brilliance of it. So I love that. Yeah.
Let's dive into our first clip. So this is a good one. I like this clip.
All right. This is a good way to start the show.
Okay. Einstein said the quantum field, that energetic field, is the sole governing agency of the particle. He says the field controls the particle. He didn't say the particle controls the particle. He says the information in the field is actually controlling the particle. Okay, so what if you could create from the field instead of from from matter? Okay, how would you do that? Okay, well then, all of our attention is immersed in three-dimensional reality. If you think about it, all your attention is on your body. It's on people in your life, objects, your cell phone, your computer, your bicycle, your scooter, where you live, where you work, where you go to school, the classes you go to, where you sleep, the pubs you like to go to, the friends you have. That creates our identity in three-dimensional reality. Okay, so what we discovered is that when you get really stressed and you get really out of balance, the arousal of the stress hormone causes you to put more attention on your body. That's what survival does. If you're being chased by T-Rex, you better be thinking about your body. The arousal of the stress hormones in survival causes our senses to get heightened, and we start putting more of our attention on our environment, all those objects, all those people, all those places. The arousal of stress hormones causes us to be obsessive about time. If you're being chased by T-Rex and you're at one point and you want to get to another point, you're thinking about how much time you have to get there. So the body, the environment, and time. So then that quantum field, that is that invisible field of energy that exists beyond this space and beyond this time that you can't perceive with your senses, is real. And in fact, it is governing everything physical and material. And the most stable form of energy, The slowest frequency that we perceive with our senses is matter. Okay, well, there are other frequencies that go all the way right up to that 0-point field, that singularity, that source, that oneness, that wholeness, where there's no separation. That's where everything physical and material comes from. So is it possible that the human being with our consciousness can connect to that field and energy? And we discovered that when people move out of stress and survival and they begin to take all of their attention off their body, of all the people in their life, all the objects and things, all the places they need to go and where even where they're sitting, and not thinking about what's going to happen in the next moment or what happened in the past moment, they can settle into the present moment. And we teach them this, that if they can become nobody, no one, no thing, nowhere, and no time, and take their attention off of everything physical, everything material, everything known in their life, and go from a narrow focus on focusing on everything physical and material to broadening your focus and putting your attention on energy and frequency. The act of doing that begins to change the brain in a very, very holistic way. The brain starts to become less modulated, less compartmentalized, and starts functioning in a more synchronized and holistic state. And the act of doing that actually changes the person's brain waves to get beyond their thinking analytical mind. Now, that is the door between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind is the analytical mind. So by changing your brain waves, you start dropping down in frequency and the brain starts getting more creative and the voice in your head stops talking to you. And when that occurs, then now you're getting into the operating system where true change can take place. So then in the quantum field, everything's connected. Everything's energy, everything's frequency, everything's vibration, everything's consciousness, everything's information. There's nothing physical, there's nothing material, there's nothing you can perceive with your senses. In fact, it's nothing. It's actually nothing. So take away every object, every person, every body, everything, every place. Take away the earth, take away the moon, take away the planets, take away the sun, take away the light from the sun, the light from the stars, galaxies. You're left with a vacuum, that void. That vacuum in that void is rich in frequency. It's rich in energy. And every thought in that realm has a frequency. So if the person can abandon their identity and become pure consciousness, and they can marry that clear intention with a coherent brain, combined with an elevated emotion, a coherent heart, the elevation in frequency that's created begins to change the person's energy. And when there's a vibrational match between their energy and some potential that exists in the quantum field, they start to notice that they don't have to go anywhere to get what they want. As I said, all of a sudden they start to draw experiences to them. And the more coherent the brain and the more coherent the heart, the greater the Wi-Fi signal. In other words, they have a signal to connect to that potential. So stress creates incoherence in the brain, and stress creates incoherence in the heart. So now you don't have a Wi-Fi signal. Your brain is incoherent. Your heart is incoherent. You can't connect to the field. So we teach people how to begin to create that kind of orderliness that takes place in their nervous system. And when they do, the benefits of that then are seeing the opportunities that begin to appear in their life. And the ultimate goal in creating from the field instead of from matter is shortening the distance between the thought of what we want and the experience of having it. And when we create from the field instead of from matter, we could actually begin to alter the amount of time it takes for our dreams to appear in our lives.
Very well explained.
I know. I was going to say,
obviously,
I love that clip.
Yeah, he wrote the science on this pretty much. But.
Yeah, he did such a good job explaining it there, and I love how he kicked things off with, starting with Einstein. I thought that was so cool, fascinating.
Yeah, so we've known this for even before Einstein. There were philosophers talking about being Einstein being a physicist, or theoretical physicist in the field of quantum physics. It gives it a lot of weight. So as we start to understand this, but we can only understand it through experience. So even when he's talking about this stuff, even if you've really never meditated, there's some point in your life where you fell into this mystical state. It happened to me a lot as a child. Like I remember just like whether I was at the beach, in the woods, climbing a tree, what have you. It didn't matter what it was. I didn't really have too much thought. My identification of myself wasn't too strong. Mm-hmm. So I believe a lot of people did. And it wasn't something I discussed with my buddies because, I didn't know the words to explain it, and I just assumed they went through the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just like watching a baseball game. They're there. You don't really, you might talk about who you feel the best baseball player is, but other than that, you're just sitting there watching the game. And then as we get older, we seem to get ripped from it because we're told, in order to get this, you must do this. And when he talks about matter to matter, and you can, and it's a slow, drawn out play. And the reason being is in between the matter parts, you get distracted, and that's when you fall into the field. But you think it was the matter that did it, so you keep giving it, you keep measuring it, measure it. And I heard somebody say this: if you want to see something grow, you must measure it. And I'm like, that's quite the opposite. It slows it down in the field of quantum physics. So again, there's always points where you look and measure it or sit back. But if every day I revisit it, like every 10 minutes, how my day's going, oh my God, it's going to be hell. Now, if I do it in the morning and then do it at night, there's this huge span. It flows.
Well, that's like stepping on a scale every 10 minutes and saying, have I lost a quarter of a pound yet?
Yes. It's actually going to drive you nuts. So
we just grew up in a society that all we do, the brain is constantly measuring. That's what, see... We were totally
we were taught, but part of the brain is that, not all the brain.
No,
does
totally. But I mean, we were like hoodwinked. We were taught that, we were never taught how this instrument works, and so the mind isn't supposed to be constantly thinking all day like we are doing and talking to ourselves and narrating everything. We're supposed to have these spaces of no thought, completely and totally, with the field, like you're talking about, like childhood, etc. Mm-hmm. But the more we stack these responsibilities and insurance and paychecks and bills and all of this, there's no time for this space to exist because there's always something I've got to be doing, otherwise I'm going to fall behind. And that at least that's how we interpret, or that we've seen it. But you can go back to this field and you can begin to create from this field, like Dr. Joe was talking about, which is, all right, quantum physics tells us there's this invisible field that governs all particles. Well, what's a particle? Particle would then be matter, which governs all material things. So if we know that the field governs the material world, why would we not be tapping into this? Why are we using the material world to move ourselves forward in a material way? It makes more sense for us to work with the field, which governs the particle. And that's what he's getting at.
Yeah, and the thing is, we always work in the field. We just don't know it, because you cannot create a particle without the field. So matter to matter really is working in the field, but you're not aware of it. That's kind of the point Joe Dispenza is talking about. So it's almost like the story I used to tell, like, what made me happy? And I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, what did you do today? And I'm like, oh, I climbed a tree. So therefore the tree made me happy. I'm like, no. So when I put that in place of it, me being happy is what the expression of me being happy is why I climbed the tree, and it perpetuated, but it wasn't the causation of it. The field is forever always a causation. Now, by understanding how to get into letting go, you have control over the field, where without understanding that, the field is controlling you, if you will. Like, the ideas are coming in there, but the field is always present. It can never not be present. Mm-hmm. So we have to realize, by doing stuff like meditation in the morning, quiet your mind down, getting all the thoughts, whatever job you have, problems that may occur, you get out there and you start feeling the sensation in your body, and then that so slowly starts to dissipate. You all of a sudden get this burst of energy, and any problem or situation that you may have had when you first woke up, all of a sudden just seems like the next level of doing something. Or it might be, an obstacle, but I can remove that obstacle. It's not freezing you because you went to a higher level. Like, the higher you go up, the more you can see the valley, so to speak. If you're in a traffic jam, a helicopter will take you above it to see where it starts. So it's about elevating up to deal with the everyday stuff. We're not here to sit on the couch or in a cave meditating all day. It's like, how do we function in the world? Well, get to a higher amplitude of frequency, you'll know that. But most people are waiting for the praise, the money, the sun to come up in order to get to the amplitude. And what happens is when the money does come, they do get excited. So people are like, well, what are you talking about? Like, how does that work? It's because you gave the definition of this is how it occurred. But somewhere in your life, something opened up. You get distracted and you went to a neutral state, and then things started pouring in.
And let's break that down a little bit more. So those listening, like, for example, I heard this great guy talking about how, if you got a check for $1 million today and you went to the bank to deposit it, and, they say, great, this is a large check, so this is going to take 3-4 days to clear. Come back, we'll have your funds prepared for you, at the end of the week. During that time, from when you drop that check off to when you go pick up the money, are you going to feel lack? Are you going to feel poor? Are you going to feel broke? Absolutely not. You know that you have that money in the bank, that feeling is there. In fact, those few days won't matter at all. You're going to be cloud nine, etc. It's the trick to this is getting to that feeling without knowing that, that check has been dropped off, and then watch what happens. When you can actually generate this feeling, and like he was saying, get the heart and the brain in coherence, when that starts to flow and you experience this feeling prior to it happening, you are literally preparing yourself, your being, for that experience. And then watch what happens. Watch what money shows up. Watch what opportunities begin to happen. And I know this is true because this is something I've been practicing now for over 5 years.
Yeah, and also to remember, the stuff that happens to us or we see in front of us is in conjunction of the experience that we're having or where we're moving. So, because a lot of times people ask us like, okay, these people are great at manifesting. Why haven't they manifested $1 billion? Well, it might not be part and parcel of the experience that you're going through. So you have to be tapping into that. And then if you're having a horrible experience, these type of practices can get you out of that to where the outside world will express to you different things. So that's where everyone gets messed up with this whole manifestation thing. We're not really manifesting anything. We're not. Crazy. It's like manifesting the valley. No, I just climbed higher up the mountain to a higher frequency, and the valley was there, type of thing. And now I'm observing, I know how this works. I just keep moving up the mountain. So the higher amplitude I go, the higher value I go in my frequency, the more comes to me in what we call a preferential and exciting way. Yeah. And so that's really the thing. So wherever you want to go, like Elon Musk is worth like $300 billion, right? They say. Mm-hmm. He's going to need that to get to Mars. So the goal isn't to get as much money as you can. The goal is to get into a state where you're excited all the time, and the money that you need to fulfill whatever experience you're going to have will show up. In each moment, it's going to show up. Just like every meal of my life will show up. It will. It shows up for homeless people, for the love of God. Yep. But they're based on a different frequency, and I'm not comparing mine to theirs, say mine's better or worse. One could say mine's higher, but then there's other people that are higher. But it's not comparison to frequency. I'm just falling into a state. And even if I stay in a certain state or try to stay in a state for so long, that will wear out.
Yeah.
So
because you're trying.
Well, it's because the universe is always expanding. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to replicate and do things over and over and over. By the third cycle of doing something over, the value and how I feel about it diminished. Then it becomes the Groundhog's Day event.
Yeah.
So when you head into the unknown, which is Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about, literally heading to the unknown, it is going back to childhood state because we didn't know. We just left our house, hooked up with our friends, and then it was unknown what we were going to do. You know, it really was. We went from this to that. But when we get older, we want to know, what are we doing today? Well, call me when you find out. Kids didn't do
What's
that.
the parking situation like?
Yeah,
what's the food
is my
situation?
bicycle going to
What's
fit there? Yeah, we went out and did that, and so we get back to that, and the meditations that Dr. Joe Dispenza presents are are amazing. They'll get you into that childhood state. And then all of a sudden you get excited about, even, I don't care if you work in a factory, you'll get excited about going to the factory, you know? And if you get excited about going to the factory, let's see what happens. You may or may not continue being there. It's not the job per se. It's how you feel about your life and everything around it.
Yeah.
So people are trying to do some really magnificent things, and they're still falling short of fulfillment. They really are. Why? Because the thing doesn't carry fulfillment. The fulfillment carries the thing.
Yeah.
So what Dr. Joe Dispenza is talking about with the energy field is we got to get into the field and know we're in the field and then project what we want. But we're like waiting for this to happen to feel good. And, you know, the universe...
That's why we're still waiting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You
and
know?
even if you happen to get it because you were distracted one day, you fell into a neutral state, and the universe said, "Okay, give it to him," and I get it. And it's like, oh, like Mike mentioned the analogy with the check. It's funny because I've known people that have done this. They had large sum of money and they put it into the bank, and I'm like, oh, I was like, well, I'm not going to breathe till it clears. Like they know, like, cause something could go wrong. They were still waiting for the shoe to drop, even though it was going to clear in 2 or 3 days. They like kept checking their account. I'm not kidding you. I know people like that. Like they keep looking at it. I used to be like that with like, I remember like I had a credit card years ago before all this fraud stuff was up.
Yeah.
But I remember something happened to my credit card and I was trying to get it off and I called the company up and they're like, yeah, we're taking it off. I'm like, okay, when's it going to be off? In 5 to 7 business days. And, you know, it's Friday now, so I just lost 2 days, you know.
Exactly.
But then it was like I was, you know, and then I would forget about it. And then all of a sudden, like, it's Wednesday next week. And I'm like, oh, shit, tomorrow. It's not 5 days yet, you know. And all of a sudden, and then it was clear. I'm like, whew. It was just, it's a nutty way of living. It's a nutty way of living, you know.
But we do it to ourselves.
Yeah,
and that's what he's calling attention to.
Yeah, because we don't understand the function of the energy and how we live. Now, as the science is presenting it to us, and then when we experience it, I'm like, wow, there is absolutely nothing, I mean nothing to worry about in life.
So I feel like over the next 10, 20 years, we're going to see a huge shift in the way we perceive, experience, and all that. And I do believe like 30 years, 40 years from now, they're actually going to be talking about how we used to experience and live life. Like in school, and be like, oh my God, the stress these people put themselves through is ridiculous. Can you believe they, thought they needed to work, 60 plus hours a week in order to survive? This was all just a mental brain pattern that they were putting themselves through. Like that will be like normal, like talk in a classroom, 40 years from now.
Yeah, well, we know that now.
Hopefully
because
less, 30.
If you're in school right now and you're studying like the medieval times, you look, how do people live that way?
And that's what they're going to say about us, saying, how could people do this? And it's because we're just now starting to learn what this instrument can do.
Yeah.
And that's what's so exciting. One other thing before we jump in the next clip from the last one was this stress hormones cause us to only focus on the outside world and cause us to only focus on time. This is so true, guys. This is something I've personally experienced. Anytime I feel myself getting stressed, I know that has no benefit, and I immediately start to pump the brakes, and I'm like, okay, why am I feeling stressed here? Analyze that, take a few deep breaths, begin to let go, slow down the nervous system, because I know that stress only creates more outside, more particle, more matter way of thinking, more worried about time, more disconnection with the field, just only connection with the particle. So when you feel yourself getting stressed out, this is the first neural pathway that you really want to focus on, because stress gets us out of coherence with both the heart and the mind.
Yeah. And also another thing, too, what me and Mike are saying, too, we want to clarify this, is, we are a physical being, right, in this physical world, and there are dangers out there. So instead of playing in the game of fear, we play in the game of alertness. And when you're conscious, you're always alert. So years ago, and the reason the body has this physiology was to keep us alive. So we have another day to have another experience. So, but, if you actually look at your life, I heard someone talk about this the other day. If you look at your life, there's less than 1% of your life that actually was ever put in danger, like physical danger. Like each individual can look at it, even soldiers, like obviously they're out playing war every day, in the field of war, I should say, not playing in war, but they're going to experience physical danger more than the average person. All right. But even then, if you look at everything, it's still a low percentage. But yet, most of us walk around with 95% of fear. Or most of the time, it's 95% of fear. It's just weird. When fear and imminent danger is connected, there's a reason. It keeps you alert, or alertness rather than fear. But when you're walking around with fear and there's nothing out there going to harm you, those hormones don't get recycled through the system. But if you're in danger and you're running, they're going to get cycled through the system. And then once the danger disappears, your natural state is you relax.
Yeah.
So those systems won't go away. We're not talking about avoiding those. Now, you get the higher states of level. There's experience that you'll have where you won't even experience those. But, we're here just talking about where we are as a human species at this moment. There are people that float at those levels. Most of us don't. But to get to those levels, we're not saying don't protect yourself, don't, keep alert. But fear isn't going to help you. That's why soldiers are not trained to get into combat situations without fear, because fear will actually create mistakes within their field. So they're alert and concerned.
And on that soldier note, too, this is just something I want to throw it out there. So how do we make someone a soldier, right? We take these young boys, 18 years old, and we ship them off. They go through boot camp. They go through these trainings. And then all of a sudden we've got this, war machine. We've got this military, trained individual. What are they doing there? They are changing the neural pathways on this gentleman, turning him into a soldier, okay? It's the same thing we're doing when it comes to meditation. So next time you sit down, you say, oh, I can't meditate, I can't do this. All that is, guys, it's a habit. It's an old habit, and you're creating a new habit. It's the same way we send somebody off to boot camp to train, etc. You can train yourself to understand and to be one with these concepts. And it feels funky at first, but it's just like it feels funky at boot camp when you have some guy yelling in your face and you're jumping out of bed and you're trying to make your bed and do this with your firearm, whatever. I've never gone through that. But all I'm getting at is we train ourselves, we create habits for what we want to experience.
Yeah, and if you want to see this work, you must do it, not try.
Yeah.
Take the word try out of these systems.
Well, it's like send yourself to, spiritual boot camp. Every day I'm going to get up, I'm going to meditate for 15 minutes. And then the next week I'm going to meditate for 20 minutes.
Yeah, and
it's learning a pattern.
Yeah, and after, it's not even, because we actually want to break from patterns too. It's like, even after a while, you don't judge each meditation. That could be a problem. It was a problem for me 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
When I would judge each meditation I had today based on the great one I had last week. And that didn't work. So when you go through this and you just do it every day, it may seem a struggle or it may seem to have some discipline involved in it in the beginning, but after a while it's like, wow, I want to do this. Yeah. And then when you don't judge the actual meditation, see what comes up, it's going to be part and parcel to what needs to come up based on your old subconscious beliefs that you get rid of. That's really what it is. When I close my eyes and give my attention to my breath or my body, because a lot of times I do it now non-self-guiding, just quiet, close my eyes. Doesn't matter what noise around me, I'll do it. All of a sudden, I'll feel like anxiety come up. I'm like, ooh, there's a belief that was so deep into that lake, I didn't know it was there. I thought I got rid of it, and it comes up. And then I allow it to come up. That's the process. So if you're getting a lot of thoughts and chatter in the head, what you're doing is just stepping back and watching it, not trying to stop it.
Correct.
It's you're not stopping the rain. You're just watching it from inside the house to where it's not affecting you.
And that's the way you let it flow. Because the moment you try to stop something, you're putting resistance on it. You're making it stronger.
Yes, and you don't want to do that. And as you get to higher levels and keep doing this, people are like, I thought I'd be beyond this point. I'm like, no, there's no point you'll ever beyond, because there are deep-seated subconscious beliefs in us. That was like, even Dr. Joe Dispenza is still the higher, like now he's running like 4 companies and running all over the place. So he's still dealing with these things, but he knows where to go. He knows to go into his meditations, and then all of a sudden he goes to another level to where running the 4 companies or whatever he's doing will just be easier. It's not about like, oh, drop these companies, because for him, these companies are helping the world, so he doesn't want it. It's not about making money for him. It's about helping the world. So how does he deal with it? Well, when he was running 3 companies, I'm just using as an example, he got to a level where it became easy. It's like, okay, let's take on a 4th one. So then there was a challenge there. And so even he goes through his challenges. So realize this is how life is. But know this, you can slow everything down and then catch up and let it catch up to you. And then what's going to happen? You're going to ride down that road at 100 miles an hour with no traffic. And then you have to get off the off-ramp, and then it's going to start over again. This is how life is. Yeah. But when you understand that, it's like, okay, I'm ready for this next challenge. Challenges come up in my, throughout the year all the time. But I'm no longer like, I used to think I should be beyond this point. And I'm like, no, there's no point to beyond.
That's exactly it.
The higher I get up the mountain, the new challenges appear. But I'm ready for them now. I understand what's happening.
Yeah. Now, when they happen, you dive right in, saying, I can't wait to see what's on the other side of this.
Yeah. And it might require a different type of meditation, longer in the meditation. All these different intricate aspects will occur to you because they're part and parcel of the whole kit. When you understand it, everything is presented to you through synchronicity. I
love that.
Yeah.
Let's play the next clip.
Yep.
But if you feel like you just didn't quite ding it yet, and you show up again to just ding it, and you keep evolving your experience and go deeper, how much more can I open my heart? How much more can I surrender into this infinite field? How much more can I become? Can I walk as it with my eyes open? People do meditations, and they have great meditations, me included. And then you get up, you open your eyes, and you're back in the program. And people want to know why they haven't healed. And we have testimonies of people, they're speaking the truth. They said, my MS, my rheumatoid, and my lupus never went away. And I had great meditations. I felt better. And then I realized with my eyes open, I was still that person. And now, next level. They're in the game. They're catching themselves. They're catching how they speak. They're watching how they think. They're not letting their body fall in the same emotional state to put them in the same past experience that the body's believing in. Now, this is the great part. And when a person finally breaks through from the chains, and there's a different consciousness, a freedom that happens, they look back at their past. They want to change one thing in their past because it brought them to that present moment. That's the past no longer existing. That's the freedom.
It's a short clip, but it's poignant because it actually goes along with what I was just saying, even though I didn't plan that.
I was going to say that flowed well.
There is no right or wrong way. It's just understanding what's happening in the moment, because you're going to get into that. And like there was, I don't have it on these clips, but there was a testimony about this young boy. He was like, young man, I should say. He was 24 years old, and he found out he had brain cancer.
Okay.
And so he was reading about Dr. Joe Dispenza's work through his dad. His dad, I think his dad had prostate cancer at the time too, which was, I'm assuming it wasn't as dangerous as a 24-year-old with a brain tumor. That his prognosis wasn't good. It was like 6 months, a year.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So anyway, he starts doing these meditations, and he would get into this field, and at some point he would do like 2 or 3 hours a day. Like he would do a meditation and feel really good. Maybe like an hour later, he started feeling bad, went right back into the meditation, kept doing it over and over. And went to his brain scan, still had the tumor. But he kept doing it because, here he's like, you know what? I'm going to die anyway. Like, just keep doing it. And then his dad would help him with it. And all of a sudden, one day, he's still sick, and he gets a chance to go to a 7-day retreat with Dr. Joe Dispenza. And then he was getting to this mystical experience because now you're around, like when I went, it was like 1,700 people in this auditorium, and we're all in sync.
Feeding off that same energy.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's amazing. Like if you're in a bad mood, you can't stay there too long, or you just have to leave the room. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
And then he was participating in the heart coherence and the healing coherence, where he lay down. He was the actual healer, or healie, I should say.
Yeah.
And over time, he kept doing it, and he went to his to get his brain scanned, and the tumor was gone. Yeah. The only thing that was left was scar tissue.
Beautiful.
And now he returned to another one where he was saying this on stage, talking about it. This is where the idea of measurement we have to loosen up on. Because like if you're doing something and you're measuring to see if it's working, it means you don't trust it. That's, so he was scheduled to go to this for the scan, the PET scan, I guess it was. And that's when it happened. But it was already scheduled. But he wasn't measuring. When we slow down the idea of measurement, because if I'm like, oh, I want to see if I lost weight, it means you didn't know you lost weight. Like, I can feel if I lost weight. I can feel if I'm stronger. I can feel if I'm happy. I don't need to measure it. I don't need to look at some app on my phone. And then what happens is the measurement tools will actually verify it. But if you keep looking up to measure it, it means you don't trust it. Therefore, you, like he says, you go into meditation, feel really good, and then you look at the outside world like, oh, this looks like shit. You just went boom, right down to the basement again. But so what? It doesn't matter. But know that, okay, I made it up to the third floor. Okay, now I'm going to make it up to the fourth floor. Boom, I fall down to the basement again. Okay, I made it up to the fourth floor. Let's do it again. So now I might go up to the fifth floor and only fall down to the second floor. Okay, not a big deal. I didn't make it to the basement this time. And this is the game. It's the fluctuation game of the world we live in. So do not beat yourself up for not meditating properly or getting something out of it, because that could send you back into the matter onto matter field.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I like that you tied in the testimonial too, because the testimonials are so powerful, because those help increase the buy-in for others. As soon as you start seeing these types of things, see, that's something about our species, us being Homo sapiens or whatever we are. We like the group conformity of things. We like being able to see something and, have a group agree to it. And that's why, when we're fed this certain narrative, and we're told this is the way things are, it feels weird to step away from that because, well, this is what the group says. And, I don't want to be an outcast from the group. And that's built into our DNA, into our genetics, et cetera, and like how we experience life. And so it's hard to pull away from this group. Well, what Dr. Joe is doing is he's creating this new group, this group of individuals saying, hey, no, look, this is working for me too. Look at this. Let me share my experience. Oh my God, let me share mine. And the buy-in becomes that much stronger. And so to see something like that develop is beautiful and crucial just for the way we function as human beings. To be able to go to a group like this where, you're around others who feel the same, have that same level of energy, and then watch the miracles that come from it. Wow, that is beautiful.
Yeah, and actually, I like the way you said that, Mike, but what I would suggest to people out there that, they can never seem to get into it, on YouTube, Dr. Joe Dispenza has his own channel, and it's all, I think there's a couple of meditations on there, but very few of them actually have him talking, or they might be in it. It's all people telling their experiences, how they came over. I'm not talking about, like, for me, my shoulder, like, I look.
No, we're talking
bicep
hard
tendon. I'm talking
shit.
Yeah, we're going to show a clip of a gentleman that overcame blindness.
Oh, do you have that lined up?
Yeah, I have it lined up.
We should play that one
I was
next.
actually at the retreat I went to. I'll never forget this. It was in between it was like the third day, and there was like a half-hour break. So everyone left the room, but I didn't want to leave the room. I just sat there. It was kind of nice and peaceful. It was quiet, because unless we're meditating, it's kind of like he plays music to get you into the field. It's really cool. Yeah. But I remember just sitting there, and there was a couple of people in my section. Now, 1,700 people, so the section kept moving every day into different sections. That's not really, doesn't matter, but explain that. But anyway.
Totally.
So you get to know these people in your section. And there were 3 people in my section that were in wheelchairs. And I remember one of them was this older woman, and her husband was pushing her chair around, and I didn't know her story or anything. Well, in between this, the period where the 30-minute break happened, what happened is after the 30-minute break, they would stop playing music to get everyone ready, and people would go up front in the stage and start dancing. Yeah. So before this even happened, before the music was even playing, this woman was sitting there, and I guess they were just waiting for people to come back. And all of a sudden, she stands out of her chair, her wheelchair, right? And I didn't know her story. I didn't know if she just needed a wheelchair because she got tired of walking or whatever. But what was amazing was when she stood up, there was another woman that was watching her that was in a wheelchair and stepped out of her wheelchair to hug the woman and forgot she was even in a wheelchair.
Oh my God.
Like, it wasn't like, oh, I can walk too. It was like she was so enthralled, and it chokes me up when I see it.
I'm getting goosebumps.
She was so enthralled with it, she forgot she was even in a wheelchair. And this was only day 3 in the morning.
Holy shit.
Like, holy shit. And then you started seeing other things happening, and there was a woman that got on stage and talked about how she had cancer and did the work.
See, these are miracles that should be being shared.
Yeah, oh, they
know?
are. That's what I'm saying. If like anyone has a doubt, you go on to Dr. Joe Dispenza, spend an hour listening to these 5-minute clips. After a while, you're like, I got to start doing this.
Yeah.
I think, like Mike said, was brilliant. Like, when we see other people do it that are everyday people, the human mind says, why can't I?
Yep.
You know, why can't I do it? And that's why we're here to express it. We're all the same.
So can I.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, because you get to the point where why can't I to where I am going to do this.
Exactly.
So over time. So that's another way to help overcome this stuff is by watching all these, documented people overcoming their disease and whatever it was.
That is really profound that you witnessed that at the actual Dr. Joe retreat where you saw a woman step out of her wheelchair. Did they ever talk about that on stage, or was there ever a moment about that?
No, they people brought it up, but they didn't because he runs it. He runs it pretty tight, if you will.
Well, yeah, with that many people there,
things happen. Yeah, things happen. But everyone was talking about it.
Yeah.
Like, I think Joe might have came out and said something, but he didn't make a...
Yeah, didn't bring her up or anything.
No. But there were people that were brought up that were at previous ones that had cancer and stuff like that. But from there on in, the older woman was now walking with a wheelchair. It wasn't like she was up doing the jig, you know what I'm saying? She was actually instead of sitting in the wheelchair, she was using it as a walker now.
See, that's huge,
and
though.
Again, I never went up and asked her full story, so I don't know the whole workings of why she was in there. But watching that was just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was the other woman that got out of a chair, not realizing what she was doing, but if she was just so enthralled and wanted to hug this woman, they were standing there hugging each other.
That's so beautiful. Let's play the testimonial.
He's whispering. I'm blindfolded, and I think someone is whispering stuff in my ears, like playing with me, And so I'm taking off my blindfolds, and I want to tell this guy, hey, stop bothering me, And no one's there. I was diagnosed with hypoacusis in my left ear, which means partial hearing loss when I was a child. So I don't know if I was born with it or it is due to a trauma. And one of my bones, in the small bones in the ear, is not well shaped, formed. So it was 20% hearing loss when I was a kid, and now it progressed to 50% loss right now. Like, I did an audiogram 6 months ago, something like that. 6 months ago, I did the audiogram because I got into Dr. Joe's Dispenza's work. And so I did the audiogram, and then the doctor told me to put apparatus for the ear, And I said, no, because I wanted to do the work and do it, by myself. And then I came to the Vienna 2023 retreat, and the third day we did the walking meditation. In the walking meditation, you have a headband on and a headset. And I'm listening to the meditation. Dr. Joe says, "Oh, listen to the void. Listen to the void," with a small voice. And I'm blindfolded, and I think someone is whispering stuff in my ear. So I take off I'm in the park, by the way. So I'm taking off my blindfolds, and I want to tell this guy, hey, stop bothering me, And no one's there. Okay, and then I put back my headset, and then I go back into it, and then the same thing. And I think someone is whispering in my ears, like playing with me, And I remove things, and no one's there. Then I put them back on, and I'm hearing with my left ear, Usually when I don't hear something, I do like this with my right. And now I'm training myself to do, what did you say, And I'm hearing people who are talking that are sitting on my left, and it's getting better. It's not fully recovered. I can feel it, and I still have some pain that sometimes comes when I'm not present. And if I go back in my heart, it goes away, I'm wondering if the bone is reconstructing itself. Can you imagine that? I mean, that's amazing, And yeah, so I'm excited and thank you. Thank you. I don't know what to say, but I'm so grateful, for everything.
God, that was awesome.
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny that like I didn't set that up either. It's funny that he said it was on the third day.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's just
Another synchronicity.
Yeah. But there is stuff that happens, and like with this is obviously he has hearing loss, but people that are say in poverty, this works for everything. Everything.
Yep.
Relationships, everything. He obviously points out people with disease because, if you're in a bad relationship or you're not in one, it's like there's always seems like tomorrow is will be better. But when you have a disease that maybe end your life, you're up against the wall.
Well, and for this gentleman in this clip, that hearing's not going to get better. It's getting progressively worse, and that's what he was told. All right, you're at 50%.
Yeah.
Okay, now you're going to be only at 75%, whatever, and it just goes up until he's ultimately deaf.
Yeah, and he was a young gentleman too. So
Yeah.
like the time he was, my age, he would have been like, "What?" all the time.
Exactly.
I do it anyway, but I'm not even deaf. That's the funny thing.
I just do it for fun.
I just do it. I don't know for fun. I just do it.
That's funny.
Yeah.
What he was sharing here though is truly stepping into that unknown, not having any judgments, not having any this is the way it's got to be, but just from this place of bewilderment, from this place of, hey, let's give this a shot. And this is why I hope, and I know in my heart, that we're going to see more of this in our mainstream here very shortly. We're already seeing more and more of it. I've watched it just these last 5 years. But like, I guess what I mean is this will become normal practice. If somebody has some, disease or cancer or something where the prognosis is, 6 months, a year, death, all that type of stuff, why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't this be an option for someone? We have so much data built up. Dr. Joe's doing a great job about building up all this data. With all of this data, why would we not bring this as an option to those on their deathbed, those who, have received a terminal illness? Why would this not be something, because we're trying to give them false hope or what? No, these are all old, outdated, BS things. This information is making its way out because we deserve it.
Yeah, and also too, and I understand this because I've been through this, but for us humans, it's difficult for us to let go of even old beliefs because they seem to be working for us at some level. So you don't want to give it up. A lot of people that are up against the wall, like given a prognosis of 6 months to live, it's like, well, what do I have to lose to let go? But I want to put this out there. You don't want to waste another minute of your life, even if it's not dire that something happened to you, to hold on to a belief that's no longer working. It's not working. It may have worked in the past, but it's no longer working now. And when you go into this type of work, that's part of what he's teaching you is how to let go. And when you let go, the universe then gives you everything you've been asked for. The reason you came here is presented to you. That's where I'm talking about the misunderstanding of manifestation. We came here to play this role and get all these things, but we bought into these beliefs that create filters. Like blindfolds, like I heard there was a sun here, I can't see it. I'm like, well, you have dark glasses on, you can't see it. So when we start letting go of the veils, they start to drift, fall away. All of a sudden, we literally see the reason why we came here, and that we don't need to be taught. We don't need to manifest that. That's the reason we're here. We already got that, but we have so many things blocking us from seeing, and we know it. Why? Anger and frustration are telling us this is wrong. We know it's wrong. We don't know why, right? So someone once asked me, do I believe the natural state of human beings is peace and love or anger and frustration? I said, it's natural. It's peace and love. Like, why? I'm like, I've never met a person that was in a state of peace and love that wanted to get out of it. But anger, they want to get out of it. They just think by smashing something or hitting something will get them out of it. It won't. So it is our natural state, but we have so many beliefs that we're holding on to, stopping us from falling into that field of love and peace. So letting go can seem to be difficult, but just let go, see what happens. I tell people, leave your stuff at the doorway when you go into meditation. Know this, when you open your eyes, it'll be there. And the more you do that, one day you'll go into meditation, you'll come out of it, and you'll pick it up and go about your day. After a week, you're going to come out of meditation like, I'm not going to pick that up. I'm just going to leave it there. Why am I carrying this around with me? It has no purpose. So all of a sudden you feel light, you move light, and then you're actually walking through your day light. And I like what he also mentioned too in that one. Dr. Joe Dispenza also has these walking meditations.
Yeah.
And I know he's already done 2 of them worldwide, like set it up. I think they were both last year. Maybe one was early this year.
Okay.
And I was able to do them right before work. I remember.
You did it was like an online type of thing?
It was all connected. So you put on headphones.
Yep.
No, yeah. You put in the music, and on this time, in whatever hemisphere you're in, everyone got together. And I think he said it was like 80,000 or 90,000 people signed up for it and did it.
That is so
to
cool.
create this field. And you don't need that many people actually on the planet. Like less than 1/10 of 1%. If they're in that field, it amplifies the earth. So it's very, like mathematically, it's a very small amount of people that need to be in a positive state in order for other people to get pulled into the field.
Well, just
That's
imagine where it would be at if we had more than that, you know?
Well, that's what I'm saying
really
is
were
like,
working in
if
tandem.
that's why my plea to people out there, like, yes, it's going to make your life better, but I do it to help the world.
Yeah.
And when I help the world, my life gets better. I don't do it for personal reasons per se. You know, like anyone that has children out there know what I'm talking about. Everything you do is for your child. But when you do stuff for your child, you benefit. Mm-hmm. So when you literally realize that if you are the only one in your neighborhood, in your city, in your state meditating, you're helping your state. You really are. You don't need 51% of people to do it. You don't. You just need you. And once you go and do this, you realize the whole effect it has on the universe. Just one little 5-minute meditation in the morning changes and augments the universe in a more favorable way. And then you do it day in and day out. You know, you want to see wars end, this is the way to do it. Not get in geopolitical situations, say who started this, that started that. That stuff, I leave that for the politicians. But if I want to get people out of that state, I start to go into this field and put energy out there, and the energy grows like an electromagnetic field. And people get pulled into that state. All of a sudden, the idea of having wars or fighting start to go away. When you really believe that one person can change the universe, you have to know it can. And Dr. Joe talks about the science behind that. So when you really know that, start now. And if you don't do, if you forget today, so what? Who cares? Do it tomorrow. If you forget tomorrow, who cares? Just do it. And when you start to do it, you're like, my God, this feels good. And then you'll start noticing your family members are happier, even though they're not meditating with you. People at work are more. It's amazing. It really works. Like, I don't tell people at my job to meditate at all. I don't. Like, they hear me talk about it with certain my clients, and they may or may not do it. But I don't. I'm not a preacher at all. I don't do it with anyone in my family.
Well, that's the thing. We don't need to.
No, if I did, that means I know better, and I don't.
Yep, and that's the whole thing.
I'll interfere. I wouldn't want someone to do it to me. So the golden rule is do unto others, right?
Well, and that's what's been happening to us our whole life is we've been pushed this narrative like, hey, this is how the world is. Hey, this is how the world is. Conform. You're supposed to do this. You're weird if you don't do that. You're an outcast if you don't do this. So do it. This is how the world is. That's how we've been pitched our whole lives. Yeah. And then as you begin to go dive deeper and do these meditations, you start to realize that none of that is could not be further from the truth. It's not just the way life is. That's your buy-in. That's those individuals' buy-in who choose to believe that. I can elevate. I can rise higher. I can rise above that. I don't need to fall victim to that. Yeah. And then this is when you're taking your power back. This is when the game changes. This is when you begin to create from the field. Yeah, it's just like lower densities. Like, I could run faster on land than I can in water. Yep. So if I want to run faster, I get out of the water. It's a different frequency, different level, onto land where there's less friction in just pure oxygen rather than liquid. And so it's kind of understanding that's kind of how things work in the physical world. So yeah, but when you get to these points where you get higher,
all of a sudden I was like, well, I used to run the water all the time. I'm like, well, it made me faster on land. So I don't knock where I was either. That doesn't serve a purpose. 'Cause if you knock where you are and you notice people at that level, you're going to start knocking them and judging them, and that actually takes you lower than them. That's the physics there too. Yeah. We can't judge. Everyone is doing the best they can in this world, and that's the truth. And so when you stop judging other people, you automatically, here again, you stop judging yourself. And if you stop judging yourself, life becomes so much easier.
It does.
Yeah. So,
it's so much more enjoyable.
Yeah, yeah. So get up, after this podcast and just close your eyes, do a 5-minute meditation, see what happens. Even if it's frustrating, so what? Just witness it, and then see what happens and see, it's amazing what can happen.
It's exciting.
Yeah. All right, here's our...
Is this our last clip?
Last clip.
Last clip.
Let's dive in.
You're not interested in television shows. All of a sudden, you start thinking and contemplating, is there a new way to do this? Is there a better way? What would it be like to be healthy, to be happy, to be free, to have a new career, a new relationship? The moment you ask that question, you turn on the creative center in your brain, your frontal lobe, the workshop. And the frontal lobe has connections to the entire landscape of the brain. And so it wants to answer that question. It's the forebrain. It's a place where we speculate possibilities, we invent, we have attention or intention. So that we say, what would it be like to have a new career? And the frontal lobe goes, okay, let's look to see what we have stored in the brain. I have a certain amount of knowledge and a certain amount of experience. And it begins to select these different networks of neurons and begins to call them up in relation to that question. And when the brain starts firing in tandem, all of a sudden you get a picture in your mind. That's called intention. You're selecting a new potential in the quantum field. Now, to the passionate person, the thought that they're having in their mind literally becomes the experience. And the end product of an experience is called an emotion. But now they're not feeling sadness or pain or suffering or fear. They're feeling gratitude, they're feeling inspired, they're feeling optimistic, they're feeling a heart-centered emotion. And when you combine a clear intention with an elevated emotion, you're beginning to change your brain and body from living in the past-present reality to living in the future-present reality. And the stronger the emotion that you feel, the more you'll pay attention to the picture in your mind. And now you're beginning to emboss the circuitry in your brain, creating a long-term memory, and emotionally conditioning your body into that future. And we could say then, you're remembering your future.
Yes.
And now the idea then is to get up and to get your behaviors to match your intentions. You have to then stay conscious of those thoughts that say, start tomorrow, I'm too tired, this will never work, it didn't work last time. You got to be the governor of those thoughts. You got to start making different choices. And the hardest part about change is not making the same choices that you did the day before.
Over and over.
So you got to review the choices that you're not going to make. You got to think about the behaviors you're going to change, even how you speak. What experiences do you need to stay away from with certain people in certain places and times? And what emotions bring you to a lower denominator that causes you to no longer see that vision, because that emotion, that familiar emotion, is going to cause you to view your future through the lens of the past. So then when you combine a thought and a feeling, it's called a state of being. So then your job is to maintain that modified state of mind and body your entire day, to keep your energy up, independent of the people and the conditions in your life, independent of the habits and emotional addictions in your body, and independent of time. And I say, if you do that properly, get ready, because something unusual is going to happen in your life. It's the law, and it's going to come in a way that you've never thought of. That's the unknown. That's the surprise. The brain learns by mistakes and surprises. Why not have a few surprises? So then the moment you start feeling a familiar emotion, or you go back to an old state of being, you've disconnected from your future and you're back to your past. Don't expect anything to change. And if you say, it's that person that did it to me, I'm going to say, great, but that's being a victim to your life. So then it takes practice. And it's trial and error. And there are days where you have just a connection and it flows and it's smooth and it's free. And other days you're getting hit from every direction, because the universe is saying, you want wealth, you want freedom, you want health. Well, let me show you how much you have to be initiated to maintain that state independent of those conditions. And when you do, now no person, no thing will move you from it. Now it's permanent.
Yeah, I love that.
Isn't that a great clip?
Yeah. So what resonated with me at first when he was starting to talk about it, it's like that old statement, fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
He's showing you how to get into a state where you don't need to fake it. Now, what it is, he's talking about you may get there and fall back. But just like a great actor that's playing a new role, it may take them a little while before they fully immerse themselves into the role where the director hardly speaks to them. But it can take a while. It can take a little while, but that's worth it, right? So really what we're doing is regaining a new persona on outlook of life, and you step into something, but you have to let go of your past because your past is only going to reiterate. And that's what happens. Everyone has this dream inside them. And, you know, if they didn't even know anything about this work, it will pop up and they'll get excited. But then their old beliefs, their old history brings them back so far deep down that they can no longer see the vision. But they realize the disparity between the feeling of that vision and where I am right now creates major depression. It really does. And so Dr. Joe Dispenza is talking about the science behind it. And when you get into this field of meditation, what you're doing is you're getting used to that feeling. So you hear, you meditate, you get here, you might go down. Here. Now all of a sudden, whether you're meditating or just stepping out into the world, you hear. Like, wow. And all of a sudden, like, oh, this, my God, it's amazing. What other role can I take on? Again, keep doing it. It never ends. Because, if you went out to the store, say you went to like Circle K or 7-Eleven, whatever is closest to your house, and you bought a lottery ticket, all right? And then say you won, it'd be cool. But imagine someone gifted you a lottery ticket and you won. That would be like you weren't even thinking about it. Like, that's the kind of unknown type stuff we're talking about. Like, you didn't even see it coming. Like, oh, I don't play the lottery. Well, here's a ticket anyway for your birthday. And, you know, that's why I always tell people, if you win, I get half.
Best birthday gift, because if they actually win, you get paid too.
But you weren't expecting it. It happened. And this is the world. That's why the greatest movies, you didn't expect that to happen.
Yeah.
So why, when we set expectations on the day, on what's supposed to happen, even if it's somewhat good, it's somewhat laborious. It's boring. But when you actually set, okay, the standard of how I feel, I'm going to feel great. Then all of a sudden, the physical world represents that, and then it enhances it. So like me being happy, I was compelled to climb the tree, and the tree not just perpetuated, but expanded the expression of happiness. But if I was just happy and I thought about climbing a tree, but then a thought came in, it's like, I might fall and get a splinter. It's just going to diminish. But I can go back to a neutral state or whatever. So by actually interacting with the outside world in a new nuance, it actually helps perpetuate it and then helps expand it. And then I get higher in the tree and I think of something else. And all these beautiful things unfold, and it was completely unknown.
Yeah, I like how you said that too, because the way that we fall into this feeling, you don't have to picture something the exact way that you deem this must happen. And that's a common mistake, is we're like, all right, I've got to picture this scene exactly like how I want it, and then I'm going to be able to create it. And it's like, no, you don't need to do that. It's more accessing the feeling and then allowing the scene to play out. And from personal experience, it often plays out so much better than you could have ever imagined. And it's you could have never fathomed it would have occurred that way.
Yeah.
And that is like from this place of like the field, because you're like, oh my God, never did I think that could have happened. So it's more resting in the state of knowing, like, I am abundant, I am healthy, you don't need to know how you're abundant, how it comes to be, leave that to the universe. It's finding the state and finding so much gratitude for that state that you're attracting and pulling these experiences to you.
More and more. That's why the rich get richer, the poor get poorer in the essence of the Bible. And that's kind of the physics what they're talking about that. And it is like, Mike was talking, just mentioned about having a vision in your head. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with a vision of utilizing to get to that level of energy, but then you have to drop the vision. Because if that's your quintessential understanding of the measurement and it doesn't show up exactly that way, you're upset.
Yeah.
And 9 out of 10 times it usually shows up even better.
Yeah.
But if you need it to happen this way, I've done it in my life, I've seen other people still do it, where they don't realize the great gift that's in front of them that they asked for, but they wanted it this way, and they just squander it. But the cool thing about it is every moment of every day a new gift could come. So it's not like, oh, I missed out. I'm like, no.
That's not how it
You may
works.
have missed out on that opportunity, but by missing out on an opportunity, it's going to make you alert for the next opportunity. It never ends.
And what's so funny is you were supposed to miss that opportunity.
Well,
whatever happens is exactly
Yeah.
exactly how it should be happening.
Yeah, you miss out on an opportunity based on your idea of how you're looking at it.
Yep.
Because when you get into this upper field, you never miss out on any opportunity. Opportunity is all there is. Everything you look at is good. And that's why on the seventh day, all was good. When you start to really get into the facet of understanding what that means is we are deemed this is good, this is bad. Yes, I don't look at good and bad anymore. I look at less than and greater than. Those are mathematical terms.
Yeah.
But they don't mean better or worse. Like, 5 is greater than 3. But unless I put it into a story, it doesn't have any variance to it. Yes. And 3 isn't upset because 5 is higher than it. 3 is not jealous of 5.
Mm-mm.
And 5 doesn't look down at 3.
That's
Because
not
if
how
it did,
works.
6 would be owning the game.
One thing that I like that Dr. Joe said in this clip too that was powerful was how he's talking about past, present, and future present. And most of us are living in this past present. We have this idea, of, hey, I don't like this because this happened to me when I was a kid, or this happened, in high school, or this happened. And so we stay away from, different things, or, hey, I don't like making that phone call or going to do that event because I feel like I'm going to look stupid because this happened to me, X amount of years ago. And that's our past present that most of us live in. And the when you can identify that and realize that you're doing that, this will allow you to move into your future present.
Yeah.
Because when that comes up, when that feeling, says, hey, you don't like this and this is why, you say, whoa, I know what this is. This is the past present. And how do I get away? How do I move away from this? How do I grow? How do I evolve from this? I can only step into my future present. And that's when you begin to give thanks for whatever it is, that experience, that you'd like to have or to experience or to feel. And this goes even deeper because, as Dr. Joe just explained in this clip, we have thought and we have feeling. And the combination of our thought and our feeling creates our state of being. And so when we can combine the thought and feeling and get it on the same page, which is, hey, I want to have a good experience. Okay, that's my thought. I want to have, abundance. I want to find wealth. I want to find happiness, right? That's my intention. That's my thought. Well, what am I missing? I'm missing the feeling. I need the feeling in order to get into that state of being.
Yeah.
So that's when you combine the feeling, and that's when you're, as Dr. Joe says, the mind and the heart are in coherence. And oh my gosh, watch the synchronicities begin to pour to you. You have the thought, you've matched it with the feeling, the sensation, you're giving gratitude for it. And then you carry that feeling into the day. And oh my goodness, watch your state of being. Now let's look at that reverse engineered a little bit. Think about your current thought and your current feeling, and it's not a surprise where your current state of being is. So if your thought right now is, I just can't catch a break, life is really hard, I grew up in this family I don't like, I grew up with these situations, my boss is a dickhead, all these things, all these thoughts, right? And then what's your feeling? Clearly you feel not good enough, not worthy. Everyone just kind of looks past me, it's like I'm not even here. So you've got a negative thought, you've got a negative feeling, and you are surprised or acting as if it's weird or that you shouldn't have, quote unquote, a negative state of being. You see what I mean? When you break this down and you get real with yourself, you start to see how this works, and you're like, oh, of course. If I'm having this thought and I'm sitting here feeling like shit, how can I expect my state of being to be amplified? How do I sit here and say, oh, this is weird, I shouldn't feel this way, when your thought and your feeling are both directly, bringing you to your current state, that current state of being where you're at. And then it gets easier because you start to see what you're doing and you start to understand it. And now you're stepping into your co-creator role.
And the simple awareness. So people that get into those states where they have negative things happen to them, they play the story of like, this shouldn't happen to me. They're not aware, but once you're aware of that game is over. Mm-hmm. So it's not like people think like, oh, it's just starting. Like, no, that's the end of it. That's the end of that habit. Now it's a matter of staying there, right? So that's kind of what Dr. Joe Dispenza is talking about. So it literally gets you out of the state of fake it till you make it to get into that state and then watch what happens. Because if you're not aware of it, but if you're sitting here aware of like, oh yeah, I go to work every day and I'm negative, and you're aware of that it's not working, you've already cracked the code. Mm-hmm. That's it. But most people aren't aware of it. That's why if you're aware of it and you see people doing stuff, you simply don't get into an argument with them because they are actually right. Mm-hmm. Because they're expressing and explaining the situation they're in. So it would be a very weird conversation to have.
That's why it's so funny, you know, like having these conversations with somebody, you know, you hear, I forgot who said it, but it was a real famous, I think it was like Mark Twain or someone, I apologize, but it's whether you think you can or you can't, you are right. And that is such a powerful quote.
Yeah, I think it was Henry Ford or something.
Yeah, I was going to say it was somebody. It wasn't Twain.
But it doesn't matter. We understand the statement, but like when you're actually around people that are like that are stuck in their own way, the act of compassion, without telling them they're an idiot, because that doesn't help them. The act of compassion of seeing them, again, this is how we can use visualization to help people around us without interfering in their life. Seeing them one day wake up and get it, just like we did, right? It wasn't like, there's some people that are born mystics. I certainly wasn't. But one day you're like, wait a minute, like what the hell is going on here? You start questioning it. You realize, oh my God, I'm causing my own problems.
It's kind of funny.
And then you start laughing at it. And at first I was a little angry, but now I laugh at it because I still cause my own. If I have a problem, I caused it.
That's exactly how the world works.
But situations and circumstances are here. So how I look at it might be problematic or just a challenge. So if I look at it as just a challenge, just to be exciting, I didn't create the situation circumstances per se. It's my involvement, how I looked at it. But when you do this, when you actually look at other people, like this vision them, one day we're like, oh my God, I can't believe I was the one stepping on my own shoelace, tripping myself. And we can vision that. All of a sudden, you can actually send energy to them, and it's called transmutation, without uttering a word. That's the next field we're going to get into as technology is going to allow us. We're going to become more telepathic.
Absolutely.
And start using heart coherence to actually connect with other people, to talk. You get into a field. So these, we are amazing technology, but it's like you got your smartphone here, which is a computer, but if you're only using it to make phone calls, you're missing out on a whole subsection of things that are going on. And that's what we're realizing about the human body. It's like, oh my God, we're technology, and we're using it just like a cell phone.
Yep.
I mean, we're using it just to call people, perhaps texting.
Yep.
We're not even scrolling yet an information yet. Like, we're not even doing that.
Great analogy.
And we're starting to wake up. I'm like, oh my God, I found this thing where you push this thing. It's called YouTube, and these videos come up, man. And it doesn't matter where you are, they start playing and shit. And there's crazy guys named
Mike and Frank.
They're freaking.
No, but truly, that's a great example. That's exactly it. We're like discovering what this instrument finally is.
Yes.
And we've just been using it to do the bare minimum.
Yeah.
Which is hey, we can eat and reproduce.
Yeah. So Dr. Joe Dispenza goes in and talks about the
that's a great
the hardware,
great
like the brain, but then he also talks about, I don't think we had a clip on this, but the heart coherence. So when you work on the pineal gland, which is a transceiver, gets information and transmit and receives information, the way to actually get that to be stronger is to get your heart at a higher vibration. So your heart, the electromagnetic field on your heart is 5,000 times much as the brain.
Oh, wow.
That's incredible. So here you have an antenna, but if the cable isn't strong enough to connect down into something that it would pull in anything. If I took an antenna and disconnected from my TV, it doesn't do any good.
Yeah.
But then if I create the heart, now the heart would be the connection. If that expands and expands and expands, all of a sudden that antenna can receive information even beyond the scope of where I'm at. And that's the heart coherence. So One technique I love to do, I do it every day. And I'll even do it when I'm working. If I remember or whatever, if I'm not feeling good, I remember to do this. But just a 5-minute breathing technique. You breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then hold it for like 3 seconds. But when you hold it, feel your heartbeat, all right? Now, the first couple of times, you're not going to feel anything. That's okay. You're not doing anything wrong. You get used to it. But after a while, you breathe in, then you breathe out, and hold it out for 3 seconds, and put your attention on the heart. And all of a sudden, over time, you're going to feel like your heart. And when you can feel your heart, it means the field is growing. It's growing. It's growing. It's growing. And if you don't feel good, if I start to diminish in value, in energy, because some subconscious belief came up, I go right to my attention to my heart, and it expands and expands. It keeps that field up. It keeps my eye on the prize. Where if I go too low, I can't see the prize anymore. I'm in the basement. I can no longer see the view of the city. So I know how to stay completely out of the basement, even if I'm heading down a couple of steps or a couple of floors in my building. I could start to like, okay. And then what happens? That thing will keep expanding. The greater equipment, because the amount it radiates throughout the world, I mean, the universe is amazing. But they have equipment now that can measure it like 10, 12 feet away, depending how strong it is. But that's just a measurable one. It's so much greater. Mm-hmm. So we focus on that. Everything starts to line up, and we realize, wow. It's almost like when you had your phone. Remember years ago, it was like, I don't know if they even used Gs, but like you were in 3G, 4G. Yeah. Now we're in 5G. Well, there's a lot more you can do speed-wise. That's what we're doing. When we amplify our heart, we go beyond 5G. We transcend 5G. Mm-hmm. 5G has nothing on this.
No.
And we're going to get information.
We're 150G. We're
beyond G. Yeah. We're the great G, right?
Yeah.
The great G.
But that's exactly it.
But that's the God force.
Yeah.
Right? The G force. So we start to realize that we put our attention onto a heart. All of a sudden, when that amplifies, all of a sudden you have ideas, information. People start to come to you, and you all of a sudden, you might be with your spouse or your friend, and less words are said because you have this understanding. You may look at each other, and that's the next level of telepathy or telepathic communication. So,
and you'll notice that with your siblings. You'll notice that with your partners. I mean, I noticed that with my sibling, with my girlfriend. All sorts of stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And when humans get
my parents.
When we get to that point where we're telepathic, wars will not exist. Why? Because before anything gets out of hand. Because think about this: we all are telepathic. I have an idea, and somebody might be spewing energy, and I'm picking up on it and not realizing it, and all of a sudden I'm just sitting there, and then wait a minute, I'm like, what's your fucking problem?
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, they didn't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like people driving a car to look at each other, what's your problem? All of a sudden a fight breaks out. But if you were in this higher state, it would never get to that place. It would never get there.
And that's really where we're heading, is we are a self-governing society like that. We don't need, the different stuff that we've been told that we've needed.
At certain levels, we seem to need certain things, but at higher levels, we don't.
No.
And we're right now, in the world we live in, there's a huge disparity, but everything exists. So it's giving us an opportunity for everyone to look and say, okay, which direction do we want to go, right?
Yeah.
Do we want to go in this direction, that direction? And so people that are scared to move into a direction that's not preferential to them, we then have to have compassion for them, right? Because someone's having compassion for me, it helped me along the way, to help me get to the higher levels of understanding. Like, I understand that there's higher levels, but I haven't experienced all of them. I don't,
and that's what's to come.
But I've known how far I come. Like, it's like, when you start to learn stuff about the technology around us, that's just a mere fractal. One day we won't need this. Mm-hmm. We are the technology. But till then, this is showing us how it works. So I don't look at technology as a problem. It's neutral to me. It's how I use it. Now, if I get stuck watching TikTok rather than like doing something I really enjoy, that's where the problem is. But the problem isn't the technology. The problem was me getting sucked into something that wasn't really benefiting me. But it's not to say I can't watch a TikTok video of, say, Dr. Joe Dispenza and get get excited.
Absolutely.
So, see what I'm saying? TikTok isn't the problem either.
Nope.
It's what content, what is it doing for me? But I also don't want to sit there and watch 5 hours of Dr. Joe either. Like, I want to watch a video. I'm like, okay, he reminded me again that walk into the unknown. Because we're scared. People seem to be scared of the unknown, but that's all we freaking have.
Yeah.
We've never been here before. We've never been here before. So what's the problem?
That's exactly
But
it.
when you focus on history, you think you're just replicating it, right? Like, well, it seems that way, but it's really not, because you're older, redoing, like, World War II, World War I were different wars. Then World War III happens. It's different wars at different times. But when we start to let go of that type of concept and idea of, we think these cycles have to replicate themselves based on the past. They don't. You could step into a whole new thing and change the cycle completely. You could change how you do everything completely. And then when you do look back, you're like, wow.
And I think we're stepping into that cycle right now, personally.
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah, I
think
definitely
over
feel
the
it.
next 10, 15, 20, 30 years, we're going to look back and be like, wow, we live a lot different than how we were living, only 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, and it'll definitely speed up quicker than, say, going to like, so the period of when we went through like the Dark Ages to get into the Renaissance ventures, which was an upheaval of society. It's going to take a lot quicker to do so, time, what we consider as time, than it did to get from the Dark Ages when the Roman Empire fell into that period to where the Renaissance happened.
Yeah.
There was a long period of time. It won't be that long, And individually speaking, you can do this in a week. You don't need to wait for the whole world to, like that. Again, I don't want to press upon that. I'm not waiting for everyone to get into a telepathic state. I'm exciting right now in life. I don't need that. But these are just things to look forward to. But it's not something I need in order to be happy, to be excited. Because if it is, I'm screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things I want to lead this with as you guys take off from listening to this episode is we all know that our state of being, what we think about, is affecting where we're going. I mean, there's been countless studies, not only Dr. Joe, but what you're thinking about, what you're focusing on, that affects you. But really, really take away from this how much the feeling affects. And this is where we dive deeper, not only Dr. Joe, but I mean, some of the greats, Neville Goddard, Bashar. That feeling, that is the key, guys, to quickly begin to experience that in which you'd like to manifest, that in which you'd like to create. So it's not just the thought, the conscious thought, it's the feeling as if it's already happened. That gets you into that state of being that you're looking for. And
Yeah, think about Bashar. He said that situations, circumstances do not matter. How we feel matters. And to put it in, situations, circumstances do not create physical matter. How we feel creates the physical matter. And that's really, so get into the state of feeling. Dr. Joe's material will help you get there. Becoming Supernatural is a really great book.
Yeah.
He's got several other books, but that one's really good. There are people that actually cured themselves without even going to his seminar, just by reading that book, because he offers up meditations and that. Again, when you go to his seminars, it's a really ultimate experience, but it's not necessary in order to change your life completely. A lot of these people changed their life and then came to a show to talk about it.
Right.
They did it at home. They did it in their, they did it in their environment that seemed to be
that's how powerful
wonky.
we are.
Yeah. So, again, like I go to these seminars because I enjoy that. To me, that's like a vacation. I'd rather do that than just sit on the beach in Maui.
Totally.
I do love Maui though.
But I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So, but if anyone out there has any questions about this episode or any other episodes, just reach out. perspectiveshift2020@gmail.com.
Yep.
If you have any comments as well, just leave them below in the click. If you're on YouTube, on Spotify, I believe you can do that as well.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. All right. Well, much love and peace to everyone out there.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next week.
All right. Bye.